is Wednesday, March 26th at 5:30 PM. I'd like to call the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Board of Directors meeting to order. First on the agenda, let's just do a roll call of who I believe we have here. Well, I'll just state the names: Nicole Whalen, Sandy Foster, Scott McEnany, Katie Aiken, Beth Wallace, Jeff Leake, and Jessica Bakayaki. Was worried about how I'm going to say that name. So that's who we have here just for the minutes. First on the agenda is item 1, which is public comments. Yes, and if you could just state your name, that would be great.
Certainly. Hello, I'm Heather Bullock, and I'm a volunteer with the Bromley Outing Club for the JISP ski and snowboard program. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with that. I did send out a letter, and I have additional copies if anybody would like one. JISP has been in the community for quite some time now, and I have been working as a volunteer for about 20 years with the Bromley Outing Club. And when I first started, I was just doing Shaftesbury and North Bennington, and the Bennington schools weren't involved. They had been years ago before my time, but something fell through and they just weren't involved anymore. So we started to bring it back, and every year we've had children from all three, Benel, Molly Stark, Monument Elementary, as well as the middle school, participating in JISP on now just Wednesdays. It used to be Tuesdays. We have had a harder and harder time finding rides for the children that go to the SVSU to attend JISP on just Wednesdays. It's a volunteer instructional program. Usually drivers that I find for the children pick up the kids around 11:30 when school lets out and bring them up. They eat their lunch in the car on the way up, and they're on the hill by 1 o'clock with volunteer instructors until 3 o'clock. They can free ski from 3 to 4 with friends, or with permission from parents. Older children can go off on their own with friends. They don't need to be with an adult if it's okay with the parents. And this has been going on for quite some time, and the program is well loved. The problem is it's getting harder and harder for families to participate because we're not finding the volunteers we used to have, which I know is a problem for a lot of programs. A lot of families have to have 2 working parents, and for whatever reason, we just don't have the numbers to bring all the children up to the mountain. This has been a problem around the state, and every other district, public district in the entire state now provides busing for the JISP program. We're the last ones. So we would love it if we could work with the SVSU to provide a bus for the children so they could all participate. Families that have means, they get up there because they have parents or they have friends that can drive their children. It seems like the children we have to say no to are always the children whose parents can't take them. And that's not okay, because sometimes they're the ones that can best benefit from a program like this. Our program is very affordable. It's a 9-week program with 10 Sundays where they can go up optionally on their own. We're not asking for a bus for Sundays. That's completely optional, for a total cost of $130. And if parents can't afford it, we have scholarships. So anybody that needs a scholarship, we provide full scholarship, including full cost of rentals, to make sure that every kid is up on the mountain. Our kind of joke philosophy is no child left inside. So we really want to continue having SVSU children being able to take part in this program. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
How many participants did you have this year?
This year, I had to turn some people away from the SVSU because I didn't have the drivers. I think we had just over 100 total. That does include other schools, though.
Oh, but I mean, for the SVSU, how many students did you?
That I would need to look. I'm not 100% sure.
I'd love to know if you could share that.
Yes, I'm just trying to quickly work numbers in my head. I think I had about maybe 35 from North Bennington, 30 or so from Sacred Heart, a couple from Highland Hall, so probably between 20 and 30, I'm guessing. We've had times in different years where we've had far more than that. One year we had 226 children in the schools that I coordinate, and that's the SVSU schools plus the schools I just mentioned.
From what from what I remember from last year, there is one school in SVSU that does, isn't Arlington?
We bus, Arlington
Oh,
buses.
Arlington provides a bus.
They do.
So I think it makes sense that it's something we should definitely look into.
So I agree. I think it's something that we should certainly look into. It seems like, you know, there's two main areas that I can see that would potentially be working against us, and that's one, funding. But I know that there's some conversations happening there. And two, availability of buses and logistics when you're also got full bus routes for all of the buildings within the district, and you've got to get those kids home. Do you have those kids home, and we have so many schools within the SU that to have that many buses all going up there to serve one school. So do you have any context as to how in other areas where there's multiple buildings?
What I've kind of considered, and actually Ms. Boudre and I have been working on this for a couple of years now. But I knew she was retiring, so I thought I would bring everybody else into it as well. What I thought might be a good idea is, since early dismissal is on Wednesdays, and that is perfect for GISP, if the elementary students could be bused over to the middle school, and then there's just one bus that goes up from there. And then the bus returns.
Isn't it, who dismisses first?
The middle school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes it tricky.
Sure.
It's timely that we're talking, because one thing that we've been talking about, and we were able to finally hire a 21st Century Grant Coordinator. And the Agency of Education just finished their visit, their first, because it's a 5-year grant with federal money, but it's the first of 5 years, and they just finished their visit with us a week ago. And so we have an advisory meeting tomorrow, and transportation is the second agenda item. So I wanted you to know as well, knowing that this was a conversation happening. It was just weird that it was all happening at the same time. We have other stakeholders as well that have requested. So this is on the agenda for the advisory team tomorrow. Okay. And then Heather, I can call you after, because you've expressed interest in follow-up.
Definitely. And feel free to give my
I will.
email to anybody if they have questions.
Absolutely.
You know, anything we can do to try to make this work, because like I said, it's a wonderful program. I'm pulling my hair out in October and November trying to organize this. But in January, when I see kids that, you know, often are the kids that are like this, you know, going down the hall at school, and they're out on the mountain and they're having a great time, they're yelling and, you know, having fun with their friends, it makes it all worth it. It's just a really worthwhile program. And my girls have well aged out of the program, but I continue to do it because it's such a worthwhile program.
Thank you for doing it.
Oh, no worries. And like I said, I hope we can continue to work together and find a solution. I can tell you that some of the parents that I couldn't find rides for said, you know, we're happy to go pick the kids up at the middle school or bring them from the elementary school over to the middle school to meet a bus, should a bus become available. We also have at least 2 children that are in our GISP BART Center program. So the BART Center works with children who have physical and emotional disabilities and challenges, and they can get children, even if they can't walk, they can get them out on the hill with special adaptive equipment. And also for children suffering from emotional issues, they have wonderful volunteers who work with them also on the hill.
That's great. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
we'll get an update at our next meeting about the
Mhm.
meeting tomorrow, Laura. I would hope that we would have bus availability since we can bus teams to different athletic, events after school.
It's just the volume of buildings.
Yeah, right. I mean, but it sounds like
And the
there's-
quantity per school, like we don't have that information yet. We know that they have the total, but we don't know if majority of them are in Sacred Heart or if they're.
Well, it sounded like maybe 30 in Sacred Heart, 30 in North Bennington, so we're just talking about like the middle school, high school, and the BSD.
No high school. We used to do the high school, but eventually the high school did not want us to do that. This was before early dismissal, because they didn't want children missing classes in high school. It's just the middle school, Ben L, Monument, and Molly Stark. And some years I don't have children at Ben L. Ben L seems to be the one school that I have the least amount of students participating, but I bet it would be more if there was transportation.
Does seem a little bit like an equity issue of Arlington buses,
We own our own buses.
right? Right. Still, it's an equity of access issue.
The good thing is you've got Holly who knows transportation logistics and Laura who can help with potential funding resources. And I assume that when you guys have enough information, you'll come back.
That's right.
Think so.
And Heather, both of my daughters participated and I volunteered for the BART centers. So you do amazing work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for your years with just. And who would be my contact? Would it,
I'll be, yep,
okay, so
Yes.
you and I can get in
Yes.
touch.
yep.
Regarding
Yep,
any minutes.
okay.
Sounds
Yes, I
good.
will. Heather, I'll.
Thank you everyone
you.
for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, operations, Green Mountain Power Bus Business Innovation Rebate Offer, buses innovation.
So Renee's gonna correct me where I go off the rails, but basically Arlington does have their own buses and we secured a grant through the EPA to get 4 buses for Arlington. They are all electric and it is 100% grant program, so it will cost no money for the buses. And we are in the 3rd round of that grant award through the federal government. Since the administrations have changed, they've put a pause on the 3rd round. First round is getting closed out, 2nd round is in progress. And we're working with the EPA to get more information and timelines on when they expect to be able to tell us what next steps look like. To help fill some of the gap in funding for the infrastructure piece, Green Mountain Power has stepped up because in addition to the 4 buses, there's about $100,000 worth of infrastructure that needs to be in place. That's being funded out of a Department of Energy prize that the SVSU received. So again, that's federal money. And Green Mountain Power said, hey, here's additional funds when we get the buses to help offset some of the cost of the infrastructure installation. So the Arlington board already approved it. It's a formality just because transportation is at an SVSU level. And so we wanted to bring it to your attention.
It's worth noting,
The funding is basically gonna come
Right,
into the SU, so technically I need this
technically
board
it's an
to
Arlington
approve
issue.
it, even though Arlington already did.
Arlington did. I trust everybody feels good about it.
Holly's kept us
Yeah.
up to date on all the logistics. I mean, there are definitely some concerns when you start talking about funding and resources but if we don't keep moving forward, we will miss the opportunity. And it's a pretty incredible opportunity.
So the action would be to accept the rebate offer from Green Mountain Power.
Yeah.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Made by Sandy, second. Any discussion?
Thank you for all of your work on shepherding this, both of you. I know it's been a lot.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Unanimous, okay.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda, finance.
I think
Yeah.
that's supposed to say treasurer's
I
report.
was gonna say, I was like, treasurer's report for February, which was in the packet. And the, for your 25, fiscal year 25 audit, engagement, so. Under the packet, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Motion to accept the treasurer's report.
We have a motion made by Sandy. Do I have a second?
Second,
Seconded by Nicole. Any discussion?
there were 2 months in there, I think. I'm not sure that we had the last one, the last time we met, so I think it's a
So
January.
January and February. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Any abstentions? Okay, the budget, or sorry, the audit engagement, I trust you're ready to help us with that.
So, this is RHR Smith has been our auditing firm for, gosh, probably over 10 years now. They have certainly suffered some growing pains over the years because they have basically taken on, I would say, the majority of school districts, and now are moving into even the municipalities of Vermont, while they are very busy in Maine, because there are so many firms that used to do it that are getting out of business. So their process has been evolving. They have basically expanded their operations, have new systems in place. This is a standard thing that they send me every year, is an engagement letter for the coming year. This year, they have asked for a 50% retainer, basically to secure our place on their schedule, which is new. And they also want the governance to sign off on the engagement letter as well. So that's why I wanted to bring it to the board. The payment, the 50% payment is included as a prepayment on the warrant that's in the consent agenda tonight. So it basically, there's no concerns with this. It's a standard engagement letter, but we just need the board to approve it, and then authorize Scott to sign it.
Okay, can we have a motion?
A motion to approve the engagement, the audit engagement. And have
you.
Scott sign.
Okay, so we have a motion by Sandy. Do I have a second?
second,
Okay, any discussion? This is this is an annual audit?
Yes,
Okay, and so it happens
every year. It's just this year, I think, because of how much they have expanded their operation and the investments that they've had, there's a lot of demand on their schedule. So to lock us in, sending in that retainer, and then making sure that the boards are aware.
And so it's a fully budgeted expense. It's. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? It was unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 4 on the agenda, consent agenda, which includes minutes, warrants, retirements, leave of absence, resignations, and nominations. There are no objections. I'd like to move those all as one. Do I have a motion to move minutes, warrants, retirements, leave of absences, resignations, and nominations?
I make the motion to accept the consent agenda 1 through 6 as listed.
It's a neater way to say it.
Second,
Motion made by Sandy, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion?
This is Jeff. I just have a quick question. What does the academic mentor do?
Isaiah
Is it at the high school?
high school.
At the high school?
Laurie, do you want me to answer that?
Sure,
Oh,
Nick.
Go, yes, go.
Thank
Well,
you.
I forget that Laura was principal of the high school, so she may be better equipped than I am. But my understanding of the academic mentor is that they work with individual students or small groups on the classwork that they're doing, in their general education classroom. So they're coming to the student center and doing essentially tutoring and small group and individual work to help support them in their classroom.
So
Did I
they
get that
don't have
pretty-
any
pretty
formal
right?
in education. They're just more like I did use the word tutor, but that's probably not right.
Sure.
It's basically a
They
tutor.
do. So the position, we actually have two different pay rates for academic mentors. We have licensed, a certified teacher rate and a non-certified
Yep.
teacher rate. So we do
Okay.
have some certified teachers that are working as academic mentors. We do have some that that are not certified teachers. They all require bachelor's degrees. And it has actually been a pipeline to teachers. We have a lot of teachers that have come through academic mentor roles, which has been nice.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Sure.
You were about to say something.
I was just gonna say, and just having an experience with them, I feel like the foundation also what they do is they build relationships with kids. So they actually make a connection so that they can support students in actually being able to focus on their work. And they partner with classroom teachers, so they really know what's going on. But the relationship building piece was an enjoyable thing to watch. Good memories of that.
That's great. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I,
Those opposed? And any abstentions? That was unanimous. On to item 5 on the agenda, policies. I need a motion to warn number 2600 superintendent of schools evaluation and review. And if there's an update as to the content or context for the content, we can do that as part of the discussion as we move to warn it. So can I have a motion to warn policy number 2600?
Motion to warn, policy 2600.
Made
I'll
by
second.
Sandy, seconded by Katie. Any discussion?
Just a little bit. This is the first time that you should be looking at it. And so any feedback that you can give to the committee would be welcomed. So this is just the FYI, we are looking at these 3 policies. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the next time that they come around, they'll look a little bit cleaner.
So that statement will be the same for all 3
Yes,
because of where they are in the stage of the
Correct.
process. Any feedback you have could be directed directly to you.
yeah,
Sandy?
4, 8,
Okay.
Or Glenn.
Or Glenn.
and for this one in particular, what was your kind of focus in, I haven't read through it, I have
Okay.
to say, I haven't read through it. What was the focus in doing the revisions?
The review hadn't been done since
Yeah.
way back, and so it had every single school district back before. We were all one
Yep.
in the elementary level. And so it really didn't connect to where we are today as our boards. And then it also shifts to having this board serve as the one to actually give the review, and it puts the burden on the board chair to make sure it all happens on a timely basis.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's,
That's how it was before, even if that wasn't what was in the policy, that's certainly how it was practically applied.
right.
So good.
And if I think I heard correct, I think I heard that where we ran into some issues was that this in some ways countered what the contract said
Yes.
even. And so having everything be in a way that complemented or worked with one another was a key part of this. And I believe that I heard part of this is to make it even a bit more in line with what the Vermont School Board Association.
We actually used the rubric from the Vermont School Board Association as part of that tool for assessment. It's also asking for each board to actually decide what goals we would like our superintendent to have to be evaluated on. So that is something that should be the maximum, as late as it is October. But our current superintendent said he would prefer to have had them much sooner. And so I think it would be helpful if the new superintendent knows on July 1st what their goals will be, what his goals will be. So that's something for us to all consider.
I think that's important. I mean, it's important. And we should be setting the goals for the superintendent, not every single board.
But you're going to accept input is what. this
Absolutely,
says,
right.
That you'll accept the input from all the boards.
Yep.
And then.
Yep.
We'll go through it from there.
Yeah, a superintendent with a dozen goals is probably not as effective
Right.
as if they have 3 or 4 strategic.
But listening to all the boards helps to give us a collective agreement as to where we would like our superintendent to go. Be
Any other discussion on 2600? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of warning policy 2600? Signify by saying aye.
I,
Those opposed? Any abstentions?
Me.
Ray is going to abstain. Next up is, policy 4100, alcohol and drug-free workplace. May I have a motion to warn policy 4100?
I'll make the motion to warn policy 4100.
So we have a motion made by Sandy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Katie. Any discussion on this one?
This one's a little bit different. There's some concern about the wording, and so we need some clarification from legal in order to move forward on it. We do want a alcohol and drug-free workplace.
Yeah.
But we also need to be aware that sometimes people have drugs that they are prescribed that they take during the day, and we do not want to isolate those staff members who may need some type of medication that is prescribed. So we're working on that.
Okay.
With the nurses.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of warning policy 4100, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And any abstentions?
No, I should have been with me.
So that is unanimous, including Ray. Last in under policy is number 5175, possession, sale, distribution, and use of illegal substances. May I have a motion to warn 5175?
Like to make a motion to warn 5175 policy number.
We have a motion made by Sandy. Can I have a second?
Second.
Ray will second. Any discussion on this one?
This one is just a little bit more streamlined, to get it more up to date. That's all. It's not as, I don't remember seeing as, Katie, do you, as time consuming as the others?
Yeah, no, this one wasn't just. I think there was
It was
still,
vocab. We were clarifying some of the vocabulary in that,
As
we
well.
wanted to make sure that the definitions were correct, and I think that was the primary focus.
Thank you.
And the strikeouts are just because that language wasn't needed.
Correct. Yes.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of warning 5175, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, it was unanimous. Chair's report. I want to reiterate my thanks for the effort and the work that has gone into finding and eventually hiring the next superintendent of the supervisory union. A lot of really great work there. Work continues to happen as far as the contract efforts. I am working closely with Tracy and Nick on that. So we will be continuing to make some progress there, which I feel really good about where we are currently. There has been some, and I know this is going to be a topic in a few moments, so I'm not going to speak too much on it, but there has been, obviously, when you have things happening with education at the federal level, a lot of things happening with education at the state level. There's a lot of conversations and things that are happening especially with districts that are really trying to chart their course now before somebody charts it for them in the future. And so I know Nicole has been involved in a few key conversations about that. There is a group of, or the supervisory unions within our area have started to come together to have conversations. That would be Taconic and Green and BRSU. And we have been, we were involved quite at the 11th hour in those conversations last week. Nicole was, and I'm sure she can give us a little bit of an update. And there's further conversations there, nothing, obviously, a lot of kind of broad strokes and broad conversations about various goals, but there will be, more of those to be had. And I've asked, especially because of Nicole's knowledge of those districts to our north, which is far superior to mine. I've asked if Nicole can help lead that from our perspective and go up there, obviously listening, and hopefully we can all be ahead of it. And I know you've been having conversations and learning as well, which is going to be part of what you talk about. So I'll stop there, but just know that these are things that are happening. And as I think it was referred to as with the sausage making happening up in the State House with all of this, it's good to be a key part of it and ahead of it now. Superintendent's report. So first, under that is grant update.
Grant update. So annually, we, Renee and I come to this board and we talk about the federal grants that we're about to apply for, and it is now grant season. I want to start by thanking the finance department and specifically, Tracy Maroney, who this year, and we brought extra copies, but if you're on your computer, so we're not giving you anything new, but the grant information was already posted in the annual report this year, which was wonderful. So we're referencing this, and we want to say to anybody that's watching online, if you're looking for information about the different grants that the SVSU receives, you can go to www.svsu.org. You can go to the finance department, and it is
Scroll to the bottom.
scroll to the bottom,
Right there.
and they're all right there. If anybody in the room tonight wanted a hard copy, we did bring some in. We just want to reference the names of the grants so we can remind you. But before I do that, as Scott alluded to, there's a lot of conversation at the federal level around federal grant funding. And so we would like to assure the board that Renee and I are monitoring that information. And we follow the guidance provided by the Agency of Education. So I'm going to give you that language first, and it really hasn't changed since I previously reached out to you earlier this winter. But the Agency of Education is closely monitoring funding and policy discussions in Washington, D.C. The AOE's general advice to educators has been to proceed with their planned professional development and instructional activities in accordance with their SU instructional priorities, needs assessment activities, and state board education rules, and to consult with their legal counsel when there's any concerns. So we use this as our kind of like our elevator speech, because we get asked this question all the time. Because it is grant season right now. And so just as a reminder, all of our schools are Title school-wide schools, all 10 of our schools. That means that they're required annually. So all of our schools last year, you approved the large 3-year overarching goals. And so now their responsibility is every year to kind of have a baby step goal. And so right now, what all 10 schools are doing is reviewing with their leadership teams, they're reviewing data based on those their baby step goals to get to their big overarching goal. And then what Renee and I will start to do is to meet with them to look at how they've been using the federal money that's allotted to their school to make plans for the grants that Renee and I need to prepare. So the ones that we just want to touch upon tonight. So our title grant is one of our biggest grants, and we receive Title I money. And the purpose of Title I is to support eligible students identified at most risk of failing to meet the state's challenging academic standards. We also receive Title II, which is funds to provide supplemental activities that strengthen the quality and effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other school leaders. And then Title IV is funds to support improvement of students' academic achievement by providing access to a well-rounded education. And so I give some examples every year. A Title I funded activity, our parent engagement activities, interventionists that support like literacy and math. A Title II example would be, right now, there's, the Vermont has a law in regards to teaching literacy. And so we could use Title II money to provide funding, like at the middle school right now, to fund someone that can support training in literacy instruction. And an example of a Title IV investment is we have 2 district social, emotional, and behavior coaches that can support decisions. So every year, Renee and I are responsible for doing meaningful consultation. We always use this board meeting as an opportunity to share with the public that if you have any ideas for how you would like to see any title money spent, you are welcome to reach out to me, Laura Boudreau, at lboudreau at svsu.org, or Renee Gordon. Are you Renee Gordon? Are you Renee Gordon?
Renee.Gordon.
Renee.Gordon at svsu.org. Or you can call here at central office. The other federal grant we just wanted to touch upon is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And that's to support the supplemental special education for K through 12 students, primarily with a focus on staffing across our district. So tonight, again, for this little piece, I just wanted to remind you that this work is happening right now. We will give you any updates that we receive that we think we would like the board to know. We're trying to be really thoughtful in our planning and aware of what's happening around us. And we're really leaning on the agency to keep us on top. We know that the notice of our allocation has been pushed out, so we're probably not going to know what our allocation is, and till the end. Renee and I have a training in 2 weeks. Renee and I have a training in 2 weeks, which is great because that's scheduled and on task, and then we should find out probably later. We hope later in April, so we know what we're running against. So that is my grant update, part A of my piece tonight.
I'm sorry, some of this is, gets a little confusing for me because I'm not sure whether we're talking 26.
FY, so this is going to be starting after, so this grant cycle that we're in right now is going to end on June 30th. And so the next grant cycle runs the fiscal year calendar.
Okay.
So we're going to be writing investments that will start after July 1, so FY 26.
And so where I was going with kind of my confusion is when I hear, when I watch the news or read certain things, some things it seems like you might have budgeted you might have been budgeting for money that was supposed to be here for now or even next year, that, or for right now, that isn't coming. Is there any risk with some of the changes that are happening within the administration that what we are budgeting for?
Current funding, I would say no. Typically, because of the way that the agency handles it, it's all on a reimbursement basis. So I believe that the agency has received the allocation for the state and the money flows to us on a reimbursement basis. So basically we have to spend the money first and then we submit either monthly or quarterly to basically replenish those funds. It'll be going forward.
And so if it's federal money, you're still working with somebody within the state agency of education. Is that?
Oh, yeah. So there's a team. So especially for title, there's a team, like we're attached to a whole team. So think of, I'm the program side, Renee's the finance side, and at the agency, they have a same team makeup. That's our support network. And again, you can imagine we reached out initially early on when messaging was starting to come, and they continue to carry the same message. And so we are proceeding forward with our plans, but we're trying to be really thoughtful. And our goal is, I think about when we share, in particular, like social emotional staffing patterns with you in the fall, we do that so you're aware. And you're aware of the sources of funding so that we can project out and be prepared. I think that's the best thing that you could communicate back to your boards when you go back to your boards, is just to be just mindful and thinking about, what are the resources that you're helping to monitor. And we're going with the message that we have from the OE, but we should just always be prepared, I guess would be my best advice in thinking about the resources we have.
Just to follow,
Yeah, that's-
sorry, just to follow up, I think, what I'm hearing though is that the budgets that were passed in March for next year, those took into account this funding?
So like your budgets, so they're totally separate. Local. Yes, those are your local budgets, yeah. So you passed, and that's always been hard because you work towards your local budget starting in the fall, and then that cycle finishes with the voters voting on in March, and then grant season starts. So it's the timing is always, we have no control over it, but that's just how they run. But the cycle, it's still a fiscal year it starts on July 1.
So the funding that, I'm sorry, Ray.
Go ahead.
So the funding that you're applying for now will be for next year.
Correct.
And you're here now, and we don't have to reapply until next year about this time. And should I guess that about that time you'll be bored at home? And perhaps we'll be looking for something exciting and fun to do?
I know where to find her.
Or are you in the process of also trying to share? Or is
Oh,
Renee
yeah,
just-
this is bigger. I have we are lucky that, our district receives this funding, and we very much want to stay in front and protect it. There's a larger team behind Renee and I, or beside us, I should say, that helps to do this work. And so we meet, we actually have a team. We meet starting the first Monday in January. We meet every Monday at 11:15. And there are probably 8 of us from this office, and we come together, and our total focus is running down all of these grants from each department and trying to just do a check-in. So I can assure you that there's multiple people that are touching this, and that our principals, on Tuesday, I'll be meeting with each one of them individually with their investments from this past year to look at their investments linked to their goals to help them make some good decisions. So they're also very involved. And then as a reminder, we're also responsible for equitable shares to all the private schools in our attendance catch zone as well. So I think we have 17 schools we're supporting this year, but there's a large team of us that do this work.
Thank you.
So I don't know why I haven't asked this before. But if you work on a reimbursement basis, you have to supply the funds first. So how do you supply the funds?
We're not.
Since you cannot borrow money, the SU cannot borrow.
We're spending on their money, right? So it's like the assessments that all the member districts pay in.
Yeah.
We're helping to basically give us the cash to spend, and then it's getting reimbursed. So yeah, it's not ideal, but they shifted that several years ago. They used to incrementally fund us, and then they completely switched to a reimbursement model.
So that's,
I was really nervous during the COVID funding, because when we had $17 million of ARP ESSER coming, and we had this little window to spend it, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough cash to actually do it, but
we're going to have to spend it first, and get reimbursed.
I was really nervous.
So. Okay, so those assessments are through mostly special education, early education. and-
Covers everything in administration and yeah.
Okay,
Any more questions about
so they come from the taxpayers, except the taxpayers are gonna get reimbursed.
And then, yeah, we've got our census block grant that comes, there's other small streams of funding that come in through the agency as well.
Okay, so it's very difficult for an SU to be putting that money out there. Since you don't get to borrow, you don't get to tax. You're pretty limited in those powers. Okay, thank you.
I just had a question. You mentioned some of the programs, like example programs that these different grant funds support. And you've mentioned the continuous improvement plans and the 3-year goals that the individual schools have put in.
Yes.
Where do we sort of document and track the goals, the metrics, the funding?
That's a great question.
I know you do, but
We do. So schools are responsible, like as a district, we're responsible for having a comprehensive assessment plan. That's part of the required multi-tiered systems of support.
Go back.
When all the goals that, if I just do school-based, every school has their overarching goal and the grant it's written as a SMART goal. So it says how it will be monitored. And I want to honor the work of the administrative team, which has spent over the last year trying to refine how we collect and look at data to make sure that they're measuring their goals. That has been the focus. And so we have internal data tools that are used, but they've gotten more concise. One that we've used for many years internally is NWA MAP, which you've heard and you've seen at different board meetings. That's one of our internal measures. And then we have FastBridge, which we also use, and we have a social emotional metric that we use. But less is more. So we focus on using them. We focus on understanding how to use them well and how they align with the goal that each school has set. And then their job, what they're doing right now is trying to review data with their leadership teams and their whole school community. That's where, that's also been one of our goals. How do we make sure that everybody in the school community has access to data? We want to make sure that paraprofessionals and people working in different aspects of the building, that we all touch kids, and we want to make sure that they understand, are they growing? What does it look like? So I'm thankful for our Director of Curriculum Instruction Assessment, who leads a lot of that work. So we have common tools that we use, and so here I will, so the state is helping us do the very thing that you just asked, because they changed the template that we now use to record our goals on it. And they've added pages 4 and 5. And pages 4 and 5 are how you progress monitor.
Okay.
And we are now required 3 times a year on the state template to say, this is how your goals being measured. I appreciate that. I have to be honest with you. It's pretty clean and it's going to be common. And I think that will help in reporting out, but it's new and the principals have just learned this in February. So we are supporting them and setting this up, but
GMS?
in the grant system.
Yeah.
It's not in the grant, so all the goals, the state provides us with a common template to share our goals and how we're going to measure them. And so that's called the Continuous Improvement Plan template, and that's what was updated. They added a layer to that, which is, we want you, if these are your 3 goals, if your school has a goal for social emotional wellness, which is always goal number 1. Goal number 2 is usually English language arts. Goal number 3 is math. We now want you 3 times a year to put your progress monitoring data on your continuous improvement plan template that we require you to have. They have not told us how they're collecting that yet. Though, what's more important is that we know how to use it and we're using it to monitor our goals. That is the most important thing, so that we're reporting out to you. So it'll help you make good decisions during budgeting season. And it helps us right now in this moment, because we're going to ask them to use that information to help decide how we're going to use the federal money we have for the grants. So great question.
And
It's a
all
work
of
in
that
progress.
kind of tying to the legislation, when I read through this new H
I just read that
454.
today. Yes.
And it talks about the secretary determines if a school is not meeting ed quality standards listed in subsection A, and then there's a whole process for evaluating whether or not a school is performing or not performing. I assume that a lot of what you
Yes.
just talked about, this performance data and
Yes.
metrics,
Yes. Correct.
is what would be
Yes.
used to determine.
Right. And we are required, like, your multi-tiered system of support is part of statute. It's expectation, and we are super confident in our system. There's always work to improve your system and to improve your data collection system, but I feel confident, and the state has given us great feedback. They were with us a month and a half ago, and I put all of that right on the table. And I'm also open, give us feedback if there's something
Yeah.
that you see that's not working. And they've given us good feedback that we're right on track. They. So I'm confident, and I do know that if we needed to ask for technical assistance, we have a agency person that's attached to us that I can call and ask, or the principals can ask us for help, so.
Thank you. No, that's
Thank
great.
you.
That's helpful.
Any other questions about the grants, and then I'll move on to this next piece?
No.
All right, so I'm gonna thank you. Thank you, Renee, and I'm gonna switch over here. We're gonna kind of do some of this together. So Scott gave us a great lead in, to the conversation around what's happening in our state in, regards to educational transformation. So on Monday, some of you were there, so I also hope you'll jump in. So it's been around, I'm super impressed with, over the course of the last month and a half, we've started to have some more in-depth conversations with our legislators and also with the supervisory unions on this southwestern part of the state. So on Monday, we had a legislative breakfast here. The legislative delegation provided us with an overview of the current work, linked to suggested changes in Vermont's educational system. They shared with us that they're continuing to collect testimony from Governor Phil Scott's educational transformation bill, with the focus on developing a long-term transformational action. I was really kind of taken by, it helped me. So I felt like we were getting to a place where this is going to take time, and there was a recognition of that. And so I liked that language around transformational action. And then a short-term goal of how to minimize property tax rate increases for the year, which is where it seems their conversations are right now. And then I'm going to stop talking in just a minute to say I was thankful for partnering with Nicole and jumping on to a meeting last Thursday with the regional group. And I think that's going to be an ongoing piece, but I'm going to turn this part over to you.
Yeah, it's superintendents and SU or SD board chairs from Rutland South. And it sounds like it's Randy Lowe who kind of got it started, and Randy's the superintendent for BRSU in Manchester. And I think this was their first meeting.
It was, we made it, yes.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing that it came out of the governor's first plan that we would have 5 districts and one would be from Rutland South. So if we're gonna be forced to marry, we better figure out who we all are. And the first meeting was really talking about what the goals of the group would be, develop shared high-level understanding of the current state proposed changes, get to know education leaders in the region, brainstorm possible next steps for this group, and develop talking points for meetings with legislators, and continue to meet and establish goals for those meetings. It's certainly, I mean, it was a get to know you kind of meeting. They have another one scheduled in April. Everybody kind of talking about what is working, what's not working, what they're concerned about with the legislation and how it would impact them. But I keep saying, it's too bad that it took this bomb being dropped for these conversations to happen, but it's great that they're happening. I don't know what'll come out of it, but
They've been cordial, yeah, definitely, I think both the meetings have been cordial, and you were at the legislative breakfast. I mean, I thought everything was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that a follow-up is tentatively scheduled for Monday,
You're 28, about 28. Yeah.
so it would be great to have more folks. We had 3 of us from MAU, and Nicole, you attended as well.
I think they're gonna do the same format where board chair, just so you don't have a quorum from any board, so board chairs will get a notification and then can invite people to come, and so that, and again, I think, thank you for sharing that, so it's a start. And that's what our legislators shared, because they started in, they were like, they didn't know. And so now I think they're getting to a place where they have more to share and they're looking for feedback.
Isn't the governor's plan on a strike through all places now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the version that came out today is the House bill that'll be voted on Friday.
Yeah.
So there's a House version. Basically, there was the governor's proposed plan. Now there's a House bill that has been proposed. And then it'll go, however that goes.
Yeah.
It'll go to the Senate,
Yes.
which we've had a couple of community meetings in Arlington where Kathleen James, Rob Hunter, and Seth Bongartz came to the most recent one. And Rob Plunkett came to one as well. I think the Senate plan will be quite different.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see how,
You heard that? Yeah.
how they find a way.
Yes.
And then there's Taconic and Green's point.
Yeah.
However many 13 scenarios. or something.
Yeah. I sat through
Which
their
could
meeting.
cost, But yes.
So that conversation and the sort of Rutland to Bennington conversation has created another kind of subgroup, what Scott's talking about, which is Taconic and Green, BRSU, Arlington, and, within SVSU to talk about how their changes, what they're looking at in terms of changes. And wouldn't it be nice if we were actually having a regional conversation about that instead of everybody continuing to have conversations in a bubble? Because the changes that they make, specifically to people who are living in proximity to Arlington, the changes that they make to Sunderland Elementary School have a pretty dramatic effect on people who are really neighbors to a public school. So I had just asked if we could start having some regional conversations and considerations about how decisions in one group affect everybody else.
It also looks like there's a community forum planned for Monday, March 31st at Birdburn.
I signed up to attend.
Great, hosted by Senators Bongartz and Plunkett.
How many came to the breakfast?
From the legislative delegation. Oh, that whole side of the room. I didn't do an app. I didn't count. We had three, eight.
Kathleen Ryan's
yeah.
Yeah.
And we have we have a senator and a representative that each in their own house sit on the education committee. And so that actually is really helpful. Because they were actually able to kind of navigate the conversation. So for having two that are from our area, I think has been helpful. I think it didn't matter who you were, we all just listening to the two of them share was helpful for everybody in the room.
Yeah. The meeting on Monday will be quite interesting.
A couple of things that stood out is, Senator Bongartz saying that nobody's talking about splitting existing districts. It's all about merging districts, not splitting existing. That there is perhaps a economy of scale above 6,000 students. So that's kind of the threshold between 5,000 and 6,000 that they're taking into account. And that there is little to no evidence of demonstrated cost savings of previous consolidation.
Well, they never did this.
We help me.
All right.
They built it into Act 46 and then they never did it. Except in sort of anecdotal form. So that's not what was called for.
Sometimes you don't do studies if you know you're not gonna like the results.
Yeah, though, that's kind of a motivating factor. Yeah. We don't want to know. We
Well,
made the sausage, we don't see how it tastes. We don't care how it tastes.
And I sort of wanted within this group and publicly recognize everything that Laura has done to get these legislative conversations going again at a really important time to make sure that everyone's aware of how this impacts our schools. And the other piece that I really appreciate is your consistent reminder that if we're not thinking about students first, that we're missing,
That's right.
that this is all fundamentally flawed.
That's right.
Yep.
Yes,
Pretty much.
yes.
So Laura, I'm hearing about
Focus.
other schools like like Arlington and BVA now doing these community forums. Has there been any discussion about having one here?
So the community forums in Arlington were run by the legislator, and we could ask our like small town delegation to host one. And we could absolutely just share that that's a request of the board. Would they be willing to host something here? I'm happy to encourage.
I think that would be really,
None of them are actually on the education committees, though. So the delegation for Arlington, Sunderland, say, like those areas are represented by House Ed, and then,
Yeah.
I mean, Seth clearly covers the whole.
Is David Durfee?
But
Yeah,
David
well,
Durfee's.
yeah,
He's not
he is.
ed- he's not-
He's not the ed
He's not
committee,
in?
but
Agriculture.
yeah, he's in
Yeah.
agriculture. Yes.
He's not,
Would an alternative be to invite the public to that next meeting that we have on April 28th?
So there's a couple, when you do a legislative breakfast, there's a couple of variables. So one, we have to make sure we don't have a quorum of any of your boards, number one. One, this room comfortably holds about 25, and then it's tough after that. It'd be a little bit crowded. So, but I think Renee and I could, hearing your feedback, what we could do is reach out, one in particular, and ask if that would be a possibility for something to be here in our town, and we could even do it at a larger setting, and then it's more of a community access, and they're running it, which I think is what worked well in Arlington, is if the delegation runs it.
It wasn't a school board.
It's not a school board
Yeah.
event, and so if we can ask them to run it, and then we can all just go as members of our community. So I think Renee and I could try, we could give it a go.
And I think that as long as we don't chat about anything school related, we can assemble as board members. We just can't talk about, we can't make decisions, we can't.
Yeah, but you also shouldn't be the one planning the meeting.
Right, you don't want to
can't.
plan, right,
Yeah.
so you're right.
You
So
can all attend.
that's,
Yeah.
that's why it worked in Arlington, so yes, Sandy, you're correct. So we have someone we can reach out to, and we'll see if that's something they can pull up, but so thank you for that idea.
But that is a big difference, though. The House representatives from the Bennington area are not on the education committee. So you're not gonna get their perspective of how the bill is playing out. So that's hard.
I just think, the more that the community can be aware of,
For sure.
they hear I think it's, what's going around is all of these different rumors and different little snippets of information. So the more they can actually get some concrete, this is what's in the bit, this is what's being talked about, specifics, then if they wanted to go to their legislators to say, this is
Well,
what
and
we agree with, what we don't agree with.
even if the Bennington legislators are not on the education committee, they still have a responsibility to their
Yeah.
constituents to
Yeah.
be able to inform the community about what's happening.
And vote.
I just
So,
think there's so many different pieces that are flying around out there to get some actual concrete, this is what's
Right.
really being,
I mean, this is gonna be voted on Friday.
yeah.
It's posted today.
well, that's the committee. vote. That's not House vote, is it?
I think Kathleen said it was going to the House.
It's going to the House on Friday. They've extended the deadline.
Education Committee,
Mhm.
Yes.
but they're not trying to make it crossover.
What's that?
They've missed the crossover.
They've extended the crossover for the education committee.
All right, thank you. Lot of
More
lot of
than you
meaty
want.
stuff here. With that, just as an FYI, there's the budget status report enclosed in the packet. And may we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Made by Nicole. Do I have a second?
I'll make the second.
Seconded by Ray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Night, everyone.
I don't think any of the changes in the bill